Hi, hey, hello, how are you? And welcome to my channel. So I accidentally took a spontaneous hiatus in the end of 2024. I did not set out to do that, but as I mentioned in my previous video, I ended up moving to a different state. That was super stressful and there was a lot going on. So honestly, YouTube just took a back seat, unfortunately. But I am here, I'm back, and I'm actually super motivated to read a lot and be really consistent with my YouTube videos this year in 2025. So there's your disclaimer. That's what happened. That's why the background is different. I know it's kind of random. I'm still trying to figure out where's gonna be the best spot to film and like what's the best lighting and all that. So it's not the best right now, but I definitely wanted to get out a video for you where I talk about every single book that I read in 2024. So in 2024, I read 60 books. That unfortunately is not as good as my personal best. My high score was in 2023 when I read 67 books. Hopefully this year I can surpass that. I think that at the end of the year last year, I was super busy, like I said, but then also I just had like no motivation to read, which is really sad because I love reading and I don't really know what happened. It wasn't like a specific book necessarily put me into a slump. I was just like not really into it, but I feel like that time has passed. I'm back and ready to go, so I have high hopes for my reading goal this year. Anyway, let's get going, shall we? I will go through these as quick as I can so that this video is not so many hours long. So I started off 2024 with a bang. Literally, if you've read it, you know it's a spicy one. I read Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book in the Maple Hills series. And just like the first one, I gave it 5 stars. I was super obsessed with Aurora and Russ. They're so cute together. I love that this one takes place at a summer camp. It's got like all of the cute camp vibes, but also they're like sneaking around because they're not supposed to be together because they're both counselors. It was super cute and I really loved getting to know all of the characters, all of the side characters that you meet in the first book. They come back in this one and I really loved that. So this was a great way to start off the year. Then after that, I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. Unfortunately, it did not live up to the hype for me. I felt like this book was super hyped up. I felt like people had been talking about it for years. It had been on my TBR for years. And I finally got around to it, and unfortunately it was just like super duper YA for me, which I know that it's YA, but it was like it was too much. It was too juvenile in my opinion. And I also felt like the story was really messy. So I gave it 2 stars and I did not continue that series. The third book that I read was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I ended up giving this book 3 stars because I felt like it was decent. It just wasn't for me necessarily. I felt like it was super predictable the whole time and I didn't really feel connected to the characters. I wasn't really feeling that chemistry. So it was just kind of a flop for me. But that was not the only Catherine Center book that I read this year. Then I read The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really liked it, really loved that this story kind of moved through a good portion of his life. I thought it was really interesting, really well written, but it was a bit melancholy for my taste, which is why I gave it 4 stars and not 5. That was one that I would definitely recommend though. Then I read Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer. This is the 3rd book in the Twilight Saga. I have watched all the movies. I love them so much, but in 2023, I decided I was gonna read the books, and so this is the continuation of that. I finished the series in the beginning of the year, this past year, and I believe, if I remember correctly, that Eclipse was my least favorite. There was just some things in it that I was like, ooh, I don't like that, and they were different than the movie, and that kind of pissed me off. And I know that like that's a me problem because obviously the books came first, but yeah, for the time in my life that I was reading it, I was just like, 3 stars, not the best. Then I read First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. I gave it 4 stars. This was like a thriller mystery book. I feel like, honestly, I can't say much about the plot because I don't want to give anything away. It was pretty darn good. I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it. I just don't think that I'd read it again necessarily, but it was a good one. Then I read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars. Again, like Twilight, I have seen all of the movies. I love them so much, so I decided to go through in 2023 and read the books, and this is, again, just me finishing that series. I really liked the last book. I liked that it was one book because the book is split up into 2 movies, and it just feels like a lot. It's like a lot of content, and also I feel like particularly the 7th movie, which would be like part 1 of the Deathly Hallows, is kind of boring in my opinion. So it was nice that it was just one book that I had to get through, and I really liked it. I ended this series. Yay, that was fun. Then I read The Last Word by Taylor Adams, and I gave that book 1 star because I absolutely hated it. I did not love the creepy vibes of it. It's a thriller, and I was significantly creeped out for a good portion of the beginning. And then once you figure out what's happening, you're just like, okay, now this is not creepy whatsoever. It's kind of lame. And then also it was like stupidly gory. There was one point where I was listening to the audiobook and I literally gagged. Like, I was like, that is disgusting, and there was no disclaimer for that. And I feel like I can handle gore like decently, but I don't know, that one just like really was off-putting to me and I hated it. So I don't recommend that one. I will not be reading any more books by that author. Yeah, no thank you. Then I read Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, and let me tell you, that was a 5-star book if I ever read one. This is the first book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and I became obsessed. So obsessed. Read it so quickly, loved it so much. I loved the characters. All of the characters, the side characters are so good. I love the like deep family aspect. I love the ranch. It's so good. And this was the first cowboy romance that I read, and I was like, yes, I am into this. I love this so much. So this is the start of me getting into some of that. But yeah, highly recommend. Highly recommend. I will own these books one day and I will read them again. Then I read The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, and I give this book 4 stars. I actually really liked it. So I guess that's all to say, like, sometimes you read an author and you're like, I don't like this, and maybe you just need to try another book of theirs. But yeah, I really liked this book. I thought that the characters were really cute together. I really liked the story, how like the guy is the celebrity and then the girl is the bodyguard, and they like go and stay on his family's property, and I just thought it was really cute. I really liked it, and I feel like I felt the chemistry between them, so that one was pretty good. I would recommend that one for sure. Then I read Lunar Love by Lauren Kung Jessen. This was another 4-star book, another 4-star romance. Super cute. I really liked it. In the end, not super memorable, but it was a good one and I would recommend it. Then I read The Murder on the Links by Agatha Christie. I will be so for real with you. I do not really remember what happens in this book. As I've previously stated, I've read so many Agatha Christie books, and they all kind of jumble together in my head now, which is really fun because it makes it harder to recommend them to people because I genuinely don't remember what happens. This book, apparently, according to my Goodreads, I gave it 4 stars. I do remember that I also read this book in a 24-hour reading challenge, so that could be another reason why I simply don't remember the plot whatsoever. But apparently this was one of the better ones, which is good to know, I guess. So I don't know, maybe you should read it. Then I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This was her first foray into YA books. It was definitely like not the most YA of YA books. I've heard people say that as a criticism, that they wouldn't allow a young reader to read this book, and I definitely agree with that. I feel like if you were like, I don't know, 15, 16, this book would be like very, very cute. You would love it so much. But as an adult, I was like, this is kind of lackluster. I feel like there wasn't much romance at all, actually. It was a lot more about chess and about the main character Mallory's like family situation. If you're looking for like a strong YA romance, this is not the one. According to my Goodreads, I did give it 4 stars, but I feel like I'd give it 3. Like, it wasn't the best, wasn't the worst, you know, but definitely not my favorite Ali Hazelwood. Then I read The Power of Ritual by Casper ter Kuile. This was, I think, the only nonfiction book that I read last year, and I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This book was also part of my 24-hour reading challenge, and I feel like I didn't get to fully immerse myself in it and enjoy it because of that. So I do think that I would definitely read it again, and I would read it way slower, obviously. But this was a really good book. It was kind of like something new for me, and I really enjoyed it. Then I read Breaking Dawn by Stephenie Meyer. I finished up the Twilight Saga. This is the last book in that series, and I gave this book 4 stars. It was pretty darn good. But if you know and love the movies, there is a moment in the movies where the first time that you watch it, your jaw literally drops. It hangs open if you're invested, obviously, if you're not like hate watching it. But I love that moment so much, and that was just for the movies. So that wasn't in the book, and I felt like because it wasn't in there, it made it kind of like a little bit lackluster. So I'm pretty sure that's why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. But yeah, I finished that series, which was awesome, great feeling. And then I read my beloved Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This was one of the best books that I read this past year. Yes, I'll say it, it's true. It was. I gave this one 5 stars for sure. This is just, it's my baby. I love her so much. I read this book and was immediately so peeved that the next one wasn't out yet. I was distraught, so beside myself, didn't know how to cope, but the next one did come out like a couple months later, so I'll share my thoughts on that too. But yeah, I absolutely love this book. I highly recommend it. I believe it was one of the only romantasy books that I read this past year, which is sad. I need to kick that up a notch because there is something about romantasies. They're like no other. You can't get the same feeling from a regular romance that you get from a romantasy. It's different. So highly recommend Powerless. Then I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and I gave that book 2 stars because I basically absolutely hated it. The only reason why I didn't give it 1 star was because there was a mystery aspect going on that I did want to see the end of. So honestly, that's why I finished the book, but like I did not enjoy it. There were some weird, spicy wolf things that I was not a fan of. It was weird. I didn't like it. Wouldn't recommend it. I was super disappointed by it because I was really excited about it. Like people were saying like, this is like Ali Hazelwood's version of Twilight, and like that was not what it was. It just, It's not gonna stop me from reading more Ali Hazelwood books, but I would be nervous if she came out with another one, like if she made that one a series or came out with another one like it. I would be apprehensive. I wouldn't just buy it like I did this time. I would definitely like get it from the library first just to like check it out and see how I feel about it. But yeah, major disappointment. Then I read Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This is the 2nd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series and pretty much as good as the first one. I gave it 5 stars as well. Absolutely love it. This series is so freaking good. I can't tell you which one is my favorite. That's like picking a favorite child. So I would just say just read them. Just just read them. There's something about these cowboy romances, I swear to God, so good. Then I read This Spells Love by Kate Robb. I gave this one 4 stars, but honestly it was not memorable, so I'd probably bump it down to a 3. It was good, it just like wasn't, for me, wasn't my favorite. And there were definitely things that happened where I was just like, okay, that's a little bit silly, you know? It was sweet, sure. It was like a best friends to lovers type situation, but I don't know, it just wasn't, doesn't stick out in my mind, so I don't really feel like I would totally recommend it. Then I read Snowblind by Ragnar Jonasson. This is the first book in the Dark Iceland series. I went ham on that series last year. So good. It is an Icelandic series. It has been translated into English. It's a mystery series. I haven't really heard anybody else talk about it. My father-in-law is the one that recommended it to me, but I would seriously recommend it if you're into mysteries. Very good, very good. I love it. You get attached to the characters. Awesome. Then I read Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman, and that was a mistake. I think I gave it 2 stars. The cover is so pretty, but that doesn't save the book. The plot was just really messy. It wasn't satisfying whatsoever. It's like a mystery drama, and I just feel like the way that the mystery was set up, it was not, I don't know what they were trying to do, but it wasn't good. I don't recommend that one, unfortunately. Then I read Nightblind by Ragnar Jonasson. This is also part of the Dark Iceland series, but I accidentally read them out of order. I think that maybe there's like a translation issue in the order on Goodreads, but yeah, I read them out of order, and that really sucked because I spoiled some things for myself, and then I had to go back and read the correct number 2 book. So if you want to read this series, I would be careful. Don't read Nightblind after Snowblind, because that's not the order this is supposed to go in. But it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. Then I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. I gave this one 2 stars. It was not my favorite. If I am remembering correctly, I feel like it was really similar to another book of hers that I've read, and that just kind of felt like a little bit lazy in my opinion. They're written far apart, but I was just like, dude, I've done this before. So yeah, I can't say that I recommend that one, but again, they all kind of blend together after a while. Then I read Blackout by Ragnar Jonasson on Goodreads. This says that it's the 3rd book. I read it 3rd. It's not. It's the 2nd book. So if you're gonna read this series, read it 2nd. Another amazing installment. I'm not gonna like get down and dirty into like what the plot is of all these books, because as a series, if I give you the plot of each book, it will give you spoilers. But like I said, if you like mysteries, give the series a shot. Then I read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I finally got my hands on a copy of this. When I read it, I was borrowing my mother-in-law's copy, and then I got a gift card for Christmas, and I bought this for myself because I love this book so much, and I will definitely be reading it again. I gave this book 5 stars. I really love the relationship that Sam and Sadie have. I love that this book spans so many years, and I love that you can see them grow and change as people. You see their faults. They're not just one-dimensional characters. You see how realistic they are, in that they make lots of good decisions and lots of bad decisions, and they're not just like good characters or bad characters, you know what I mean? They felt so real because of the way that they were written, and I really recommend this book. I cannot wait to read it again. Maybe I'll read it again this year. I don't know. This is like a 6-star book for me though. Then I read Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the first book in the Bright Falls series. This is a cute little lesbian romance. I love this series so much. I love it so much. I read all of these from the library, and then I bought the whole series because I was like, I love these and I would definitely read this series again. Not that this series is similar at all to the Rebel Blue Ranch series, but the way that I feel about it is similar in that I love the setting, I love all the side characters, I just want to like live in the town that it takes place in. It's adorable and I really recommend this series for sure. Then I read The Last Party by Claire McIntosh. I gave this book 3 stars. It was a like mystery thriller, but I really wish that it would have come with some content warnings because there was a lot of business in this book that I was not okay with. So it's not that it was a bad book, but there was just some stuff in it that I could have done without, and that unfortunately did take up a good portion of the plot. So I wouldn't personally recommend this to anybody that I know, but that doesn't mean it was a bad book. I think you should just look those up before you read it. Then I read Before I Do by Sophie Cousins. I believe I gave this book 3 stars. It was fine. It just wasn't really my cup of tea. It was not a standout romance that I read last year, so I don't know that I would really recommend it. I read a Sophie Cousins book. That was my first one. Then I read A Funny Story by Emily Henry. I was super jazzed to read it. I did give it 4 stars because I don't think it was her best work. I like the 2 main characters together, but they're just, I mean, come on. Like, it doesn't compare to Happy Place or Beach Read. It just doesn't. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend all of Emily Henry's books that I've read, but it wasn't my personal favorite, if you get me. Then I read Ashley Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the 2nd book in the Bright Falls series, another adorable lesbian romance. This one is about an interior designer and a carpenter. They're on a TV show together. It's so fun. It's so fun. I really recommend it. And then I read the 3rd book in the series, which is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date. And honestly, this one might be my favorite. Again, like picking a favorite child, but I really resonated with the character Stevie. She's so cute and adorable, and I feel like there were so many parts of her personality that I was like, oh my god, like that's me for real. And that just feels good to read a book where you feel like one of the main characters is super relatable. So I think this one was my favorite, but I'd recommend them all. I'd read the whole series again because it was amazing. Then I read Rupture. This is the 3rd book in the series. I read it 4th. Again, amazing, really good, but yeah, read it in the wrong order. What can you do? Then I read Hello Girls by Brittany Cavallaro and Emily Henry. I take back what I said a minute ago. I wouldn't recommend every Emily Henry book to somebody. This is the only one that I would say, no, absolutely do not. I hated this book. I think I might have given it 1 star. I did not care about the characters. They did nothing for me. I was not into the plot. It was not fun in my opinion. It felt messy. I didn't like the ending. But yeah, wouldn't recommend it. Didn't like that one. Then I read The Giver by Lois Lowry. This is my 2nd or 3rd time reading this. I read this in school. Really loved it. This is a 5-star YA book in my opinion, and I decided this past year that I was going to read through the whole series because I had found out recently that it is a series. I didn't know that the first time I read this, and so I was like, I'll reread the first one to like brush up on it, and it's still just as good as I remember it. I highly recommend The Giver. Then I read Powerful by Lauren Roberts. This is a novella that came out between Powerless and Reckless. It takes place during Powerless. It's not that it takes place in the middle of the 2 main books. It's like a concurrent timeline within Powerless, but focusing on Peyton's best friend, Adina. And you get to see like what she was doing while Peyton was like at the castle. So I really liked it. I did give it 4 stars because I was being petty and I was just like, why did this have to be a novella? Why did you have to play us like that? That felt really rude, Lauren, because I want a whole other book and you didn't give it to me. You gave me this little tiny short story situation. But it was very well written, just as good, and I think it also made me cry, so I recommend it. Recommend the series for sure. Then I read Whiteout by Ragnar Jonasson. This is another book in the Dark Iceland series. If I'm remembering correctly, I think this is the 5th one that I read. I don't know. This was a while ago now. I read all of them so quickly and that was fun, but now that I'm making this video, a lot is slipping my mind. But again, They're good books. Then I read Gathering Blue by Lois Lowry. This is the second book in the Giver Quartet, and it's not great. It's not great, and it didn't give me what I wanted at all. It does not follow directly the story in The Giver. It does not pick up where the first one left off. You're in a totally new setting with a totally new set of characters, and it's very, very jarring, and I wouldn't recommend it. So I think I gave it like maybe 3 stars because I was like, it's not awful. And spoiler alert, it is not the worst one in that series, but I still wouldn't recommend it. I would say just read The Giver, do not read the rest of the books. Then I read The Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, and this was so good. I gave this one 5 stars, I believe. I have read all 3 of Carly Fortune's books so far, and I would dare to say that this one is my favorite, honestly. I really liked this one, and I would definitely read it again. I don't know, there was just something about this one. I feel like it was written better, and it didn't have that one trope that anybody that's read the other 2 books knows is in both of them, which upsets a lot of people, and I'm not a fan of it either. It didn't have that. So that was really nice, and I really like these characters. I really like the romance and the spice and the friendships, and it was really good. I recommend this one. It's a good one. I'm glad that I own it. Then I read Messenger by Lois Lowry. This is the 3rd book in the series, and oh my god, they're so bad. They're so bad. Like, genuinely, I don't know who greenlit the rest of this series. This one is where it starts getting weird, but it gets even worse in the last one. So this one's probably like a, it's probably like a 5-star, 3-star, 2-star. You can guess what happens at the last one. We'll get to that in a second. Then I read This Is How It Always Is by Lori Frankel. I really enjoyed this book. This is a fiction book that's loosely based off of some of the events of the author's life. So I feel like you can really feel like that heart and soul that has been poured into this story. And it was just really amazing. This book is about a family, and the youngest child ends up questioning their gender identity, and it's kind of like how the family goes about dealing with that and how their friends and extended families around them deal with it. And I just thought that this book was really good, and I would really recommend it. I think I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Sun by Lois Lowry, and this is the last book in the Giver Quartet, and oh my god, it's horrible. Any of the weirdness that happened in the 3rd book was capitalized upon. It was so strange. I hated it. I don't understand who has read this. Like, the first book is a dystopian novel. The last one, there's like weird magic and fantasy, but a lot of it isn't explained, which I think is bad, obviously, when you're writing a book where there's magic. I think that you need to set some ground rules for that, otherwise magic just feels like a cop-out, and it did, and I didn't like it. So I'm gonna try to forget that series. I don't want to think about it ever again. Then I read The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I had really been looking forward to reading this one. I knew that this was a YA series, but I do feel like it was pretty YA, and it was ultimately not really for me. I gave it 3 stars because it's like, yeah, there are some interesting elements, but then there's a lot of predictable stuff, and then there's also like a love triangle that involves brothers, and that is yucky to me. I don't really like that. So I was very skeptical about the rest of this series from that point. So I read the first one and was kind of disappointed, but then you'll see I did read the second book later last year. Then I read Director's Cut by Carlin Greenwald. I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was really cute. This is another cute little lesbian romance. I liked that it was like between a professor and then an actress that is also into like teaching and academics. I thought that was an interesting pairing, and I really liked this book. I would really suggest it. I do want to do a video eventually where I recommend just like a bunch of LGBTQ romances and kind of rank them. and this one would definitely go in that video. I really liked this book. Then I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Oh my god, I've read 3 Ali Hazelwood books in 1 year. Must she come out with so many books so often? I don't know. I guess this is all she does. She just writes and writes and writes. This one was also not my favorite. I do think that it was significantly better than Bride and Check and Mate, in my opinion. I liked this book, but I did not feel the chemistry between the 2 main characters. For me, it just was not there. So for that reason, I did give it 3 stars, but I liked it enough to keep it. So I don't know, maybe one day I'd give it another shot, knowing what to expect. But this was not my favorite, and it wouldn't be the first one that I'd recommend if I was telling somebody to try this author out. Then I read Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I really, really liked this book. It kind of surprised me. Not that I thought I wasn't gonna like it, but I just didn't have super high expectations for it. But for me, I felt like it lived up to the hype. I really enjoyed all the storylines. I felt like it wasn't messy or anything. I didn't feel like the storylines got confusing. I felt like it was interesting throughout. I wanted to see what was gonna happen, and I would definitely recommend this book. I know that there is a series based off of it, and I'm really excited to watch that soon because I want to see how it holds up compared to the book. Then I read The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 2nd book in the Inheritance Game series, and I read this one because I was just like, why don't I give it another shot? I did think this one was like a little bit better than the first one, but it's still, I was just like, this is not for me. So honestly, I don't think I'm gonna continue with that series. I know that's super sad. A lot of people absolutely love that series. It's just not for me though. It's not that I think it's horrible or it's like poorly written. I'm just not the target audience. Then I read The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. Lucy Foley is one of my favorite modern mystery writers, and this book did not disappoint for me. I know that not everybody was a huge fan of it, but I really, really liked it. I give this one 5 stars also. It had like a nice creepy element to it that I was like on the edge of my seat. I didn't know what was gonna happen, couldn't guess the ending, and I really liked it. So I would honestly recommend all of her books that I've read. She's a favorite for me. Then I got to the point in the year where I was finally able to read Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This book was so good. So good. So many moments in it where I was just like, I can't breathe. Amazing. I definitely am pissed off that both Powerless and Reckless ended on cliffhangers. What the heck? But I'm ready to keep going. I love this series so much. I didn't have very many complaints, so yeah, recommend. Then I read How to End a Love Story by Huling Kwang. This book was kind of a dark horse for me. It really surprised me. I thought it was just gonna be like a cute kind of throwaway romance. That feels mean to say because it's like obviously somebody worked really hard on this book, but I ended up giving it 5 stars. I really liked this story, and I really liked the main characters together. I felt like there was a depth to it that a lot of romances don't have, but I really enjoyed it, and honestly, I would probably read it again. I wouldn't mind owning a copy of it. It was a good one. I would recommend. Then I read Head Over Heels by Hannah Orenstein. If I'm remembering correctly, I think I gave this one 4 stars. I really, really liked this book, but not for the romance, even though it's a romance book. I wasn't super into the romance. I didn't really feel like there was a lot of chemistry. And then towards the end of the book, I was really not a fan of the guy, but I really liked the rest of the plot surrounding the romance. This is a gymnastics romance, and I really, really liked it. So I feel like maybe in 2025, I need recommendations for gymnastic romances because I really liked this. Even just like gymnastic books. I don't know. There's something about gymnastics that really interests me. Maybe because I am tall and have never gotten the chance in life to even try gymnastics if I've wanted to. So I don't know, it's just really interesting to me. So if you've got gymnastic book recommendations, put those in the comments. Then I read Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen. I gave this book 4 stars. It was a really good book. It was really well written, but it was like a little bit melancholy. I feel like there's a lot of like kind of sad things that happen in the book, and that wasn't my favorite, but it was good. I would recommend it. And I do want to read her other book for sure. Maybe that is something that I can get done in 2025. Then I read The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young, and honestly, this is another like 6-star standout book from last year. I loved this book so much. I read it with a book club, and we ended up like not continuing to meet, and I just went ahead and finished the book because I really liked it. I was super into it. I would definitely read it again, and I've toyed with the idea of owning a physical copy of it, even though I own it on Kindle. I don't know, it was just such a good book. It really made me excited to try out her other books, so that's something else that I want to keep on my radar for 2025 is reading more Adrienne Young books. Then I did what I thought could not be done. I finished Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, it took me over a year. I don't want to talk about why, but I finally did it, and yeah, it was pretty darn good. I would have given it 5 stars, but because it took me so long, I was like, that I gotta take a star off for that. So I did give it 4 stars, but yeah, it's a part of the Throne of Glass series, and I highly recommend that series. I have to finish it this year. Like, I have to finish it by spring, otherwise I'm gonna be so mad at myself. Then I read Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is the 3rd book in the Maple Hills series, and honestly, this is probably my favorite one. I loved Hallie and Henry so much. They're so cute together. I love both of them as individual characters, but as a couple, they're just chef's kiss. And I really recommend this book. I recommend the series. So cute. Love it so much. Also cats. There are cats, and I love any book with cats. Then I read A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This is the 3rd book of hers that I've read. I also have read The 7-Year Slip and The Dead Romantics. I really enjoyed both of those. I think I gave both of those 5 stars. So this one really disappointed me. I had really high hopes for it, and unfortunately it did not meet my expectations. I thought it was gonna be just as good as the other 2, and the plot just really fell flat for me. I ended up reading this around the same time as my sister, and so we were able to talk about it, which was really fun. And we were both just like, oh, I'm not jiving with this. And then like the ending was just like, what? Not good. Not good. Honestly, wouldn't recommend. I think I gave it 3 stars because I was like, maybe somebody else would like this. I thought that the like idea for the plot was interesting. I just don't really like the way that it was executed. And then I also just felt like I didn't really feel any chemistry. So this one was sad. Hopefully she comes out with another one that is better. I feel bad saying that, but honestly, yeah, I mean, these are my opinions. Then I read We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. This was his new release of the year, and oh my god, just as good as all his other books. He is the author that wrote the Thursday Murder Club series. I've read all of those, absolutely loved every single one of them, and then this book is the start of a new series that he's writing, and I was super excited for it, and it definitely lived up to the hype for me. I gave this one 5 stars as well. I would recommend anything that Richard Osman writes. He's just so funny and witty and to the point. I love his writing style. He's just perfect. He's a Hall of Fame author for me. And then I finished Tower of Dawn. I did it again, took over a year, but I did it. I really enjoyed that book as well. I think I also gave it 4 stars, same reason as Empire of Storms. And now all I have left is Kingdom of Ash, and I am absolutely terrified because everyone says that you'll just cry and it'll rip your heart out. So I'm really excited for that, and I'll get to that soon. Then I read The Tenant by Katrin Enberg. This is another Scandinavian mystery. I don't remember what language it's originally published in. I believe it's a Danish mystery. Could be wrong about that. It's the first one in the series, and I liked it. It was a little bit creepy for sure. And a little bit melancholy, but I did like it and I would continue reading this series. So I think I gave the first one like 4 stars. Then I read Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I love them all. There was something special about this one though. It's like everyone that's read this series has been waiting for this one because this is an enemies to lovers, and everyone knew that these characters were gonna get together, but then seeing it finally happen was just amazing and so fulfilling and wonderful. I will definitely own these, but I don't currently because I'm waiting for the last one to come out so that I can get like a set and just buy them all at once. But yeah, I love Lila Sage. She's a real one. And then the last book, the 60th book that I read in 2024 was Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the 1st book in the Chestnut Spring series. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely read this right after Lost and Lassoed because I was like fiending for more cowboy romance. And to be honest, this did not hit the mark for me. I think I gave it 2 stars. I know that's really gonna upset some people. This is the first Elsie Silver book that I've read, and it's really made me question if I want to read any more in this series. Maybe I will try a different series of hers, but I did not really feel the chemistry between these characters, and I didn't really like the guy. I felt like sometimes I was like, ooh, you're a little bit yucky. I was not a fan, and I also thought the plot was kind of dumb. So this just wasn't for me. I'm so sorry, but it wasn't the best. And then that was the last book that I read last year because then it was Christmas and I was like, I'm just gonna give myself a little break from reading. So those are all 60 of the books that I read last year. Thank you so much for taking the time to stick to the end and watch this whole video. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of the continued support on my YouTube channel, even though I took such a long break. I am back, baby. I'm better than ever, and I am here to make more videos for you this year. If you like this video, you can give it a like. If you like me and my channel, you can hit subscribe. You can hit that little bell icon to get notified every single time that I post, and I will see you next time. Bye!